some of them are like, oh, well, we need to see the demand first. I'm like, well, you're not going to see the demand unless you make a change, because the availability has to be there. I definitely got that vibe that it was like, oh, this category is potentially feeling a little bit too serious, and if we're going to bring new consumers into this category, we've got to make it more exciting and enticing for them.
Looking at this, oh wait, this is possible. Like, I am going to be able to find people who want to have a good time and want to enjoy this and can still go out and have a good time together.
We've got a job to do. We've got to show people that they don't need alcohol.
The tide is changing, and it's really exciting. Welcome to The Upward Spiral, the podcast where we break free from limitations and discover what we're truly capable of. I'm your host, Michelle O'Brien, and just over 2 years ago, I decided to rethink my relationship with alcohol. And honestly, it was a complete game changer. It really unlocked a level of personal growth and potential that I never knew existed, but that I was also kind of looking for in a way. So I'm here to guide you on your journey to transformation. Today, without kind of sounding a little bit woo, I'm really excited to talk to her today. And also like a little bit nervous. I'm definitely coming off a bit cringy. So please forgive me if I get a little bit excited. But in this episode, we are going to turn Sober October into a fiesta. I'm going to be joined today by a dynamic entrepreneur who's not only shaken up the alcohol-free scene with vibrant flavors and infectious energy, she's also been recognized as Entrepreneur of the Year and Young Achiever of the Year. And her brand is a celebration of Latin spirit and joy. Please can I welcome the founder and CEO of Caleño, Ellie Webb. Hi, Ellie.
Oh, what an intro. Thank you, Michelle. And yeah, I'm absolutely flattered. I'm really happy to be here and to be talking to you about the Caleño journey and I guess what it's been like and just unpacking the industry a little bit and obviously celebrating the fact that it's Sober October.
Yeah, amazing. So I think like one of the reasons why I was so drawn to like your brand and your story was I'm from a marketing advertising background. I've kind of got 15 years working in advertising agencies and then a little bit of time client side. And when I first started to explore different products in the space, this was just such a standout brand for me. It just felt like you were doing things so differently with a kind of energy that you normally only see from alcoholic brands. So yeah, I loved it so much. The product, both from kind of like a taste side, but also just the branding just was so attractive. And being so far away, I was always like looking at your Instagram going, I want to go to a Caleño party. Or when I host, I want it to feel like that. Even though I'm not drinking alcohol, I still wanted it to have that energy and feel really fun.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how Caleño was born.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned alcohol. I mean, before I started Caleño, I'd been working for about four years or so in the alcohol industry, and so like every day I was surrounded by pretty exciting brands that for a young 20-something-year-old, like it was my dream job. I got to party, drink alcohol, work with some cool brands, and I think it was really when I found myself in January. It was 2017, and I actually decided to take a month off, which I don't think I'd done in my adult life. I don't think I'd had like a break from alcohol. And I walked into a bar with some friends. It was a night out. I think it was like, we'd gone to watch a band and I wasn't drinking. And I can remember walking up to the bar and ordering a drink, sort of panicking because I didn't really know what to have because I wasn't drinking alcohol. Others were ordering gin and tonics and craft beer, or, whatever was on offer at the time. And I ordered like a Diet Coke, something like that. Then I had another one, and then I was like, well, I don't really want to be drinking Coke all night. So what do I have? And it wasn't exactly in that moment, but I definitely kept coming back to this issue of, hey, I work in this world of alcohol, which feels really exciting, but actually when you're not drinking, you're given really, really boring options. And I don't know, just again, I'm a marketeer by background, and that just felt really wrong to me. And it felt like the industry was really missing a trick when it came to offering people genuinely exciting options through brands. So I guess from that, a spark of an idea was born. And then a couple of months later, I traveled out to Colombia in South America, where I have family. And it was a chance for me to kind of actually travel around the whole country, which I'd never done before. I'd always gone to Cali, which incidentally is where the name Caleño comes from. So I traveled around, and I think it reignited in me what I had experienced growing up, which was just a really warm, sunny South American culture and way of life. My happiest memories were, family coming over for parties, lots of music, lots of dancing. And then traveling around, it was no different. The people were really warm. I visited lots of really colourful towns and cities, and a lot of that kind of served as the inspiration for what became Caleño. I remember even in really, really early days, I remember just kind of sketching. It was like maybe a few weeks after having the idea, it was sketching like a bottle, and I wanted it to be colourful. I wanted it to feel vibrant. For me, my kind of expression of fun and energy is colour, is vibrancy, is music, is all of the above, and the experience. So I guess I just wanted to kind of embody that in a brand, and that's where Caleño really, really arrived on the scene.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And tell me a bit about the actual liquid, the taste and the flavor, and how did you get there? Because it's so complex and beautiful and mimics the real thing really well. Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, so growing up, my grandma would make me jugos made from mango, papaya. We drank a drink called lulo. Lots of really tropical and exotic ingredients, which are in abundance in South America. And so for me, it was about creating something that tasted great, that could resemble a spirit in the sense that actually you use it in exactly the same way as you would a spirit, double measure, over ice, top it with a mixer, use it in a cocktail. The first product I brought to market was Light and Zesty, which was actually more of a kind of a tropical gin alternative. You mix it with tonic, you could use it in a spritz, use it to make cocktails. And then the second product we brought to market a little bit later was Dark and Spicy, in which ingredients like pineapple, coconut feature quite heavily, ginger. Whereas in Light and Zesty, it was more sort of papaya, pineapple, zestier ingredients. So yeah, it was almost, how do I incorporate these ingredients? I came from the world of drinks and spirits, and I'd not long done my WSET training. So I kind of, for me, the fundamental thing was, how do I actually get this to taste great? And back then, I mean, we're talking 2017 when I started developing the liquid, not a lot was known at all about creating a non-alcoholic spirit. If I went and spoke to a bartender about it, he'd be like, what is that? People sort of understood non-alcoholic beer. It was important to me that it was distilled, and it used a same, if not a very similar process to that of creating a spirit. Otherwise, what's the point of calling it a spirit if it's not distilled? So that was quite important. And then the taste. So actually, when you do mix it with something and in a cocktail, you still get the fundamental flavors coming through into the drink. So it wasn't so much about recreating like the burn or the fire of alcohol. It was like, if you're drinking this in a cocktail or a grown-up alcoholic drink, how does it kind of recreate that experience for you, but as a non-alcoholic option? So that, I worked on that for a couple of years, and then eventually launched Caleño into market at the beginning of 2019.
And just in time for lockdown, or was that, did you have like a year or?
Yeah, we had about a year's grace before lockdown hit. So we did everything quite quickly. We got into retail quite quickly. We started to get into on-trade, I think the back end of 2019, and then that kind of quickly came to a abrupt halt in March 2020. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so just coming back to like the liquid, what's your favorite way to mix both of the products?
Oh my gosh. So dark and spicy, I really enjoy just making a mojito. So yeah, that's my kind of my favorite, and because also it doesn't utilize a lot of sugar using soda. I love mint in the drink, so yeah, that's always a fun one. And then light and zesty, I quite like making a pineapple daiquiri. So that is just light and zesty with a little bit of pineapple juice, some lime, a bit of agave, and you mix it in a cocktail shaker and pour it in a coupe, and it's good to go. So
Nice.
yeah, it was a lot of cocktail making over lockdown, and since, but yeah, I really enjoy making up drinks. I joke when I was younger, I used to make these awful concoctions for my little sister, who incidentally is our head of innovation now. And she was like, she's 4 years younger than me, and she was my guinea pig. You know, imagine like a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old like in the just yeah, there was some weird. Thankfully, the recipes have improved since then. But I joke that yeah, we were mixing stuff up when we were just small, and we're still doing the same now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's you know, it's the same. Me and my sister were exactly the same, constantly cooking. And I see it in my kids as well. They're like constantly like, you know, mixing all these things in a bowl, making potions, and
It's fun. Yeah, it's
making
fun.
us all try them.
And you're like, oh, this is not so good.
And you've got some new products out. Are they
Yes,
coming
we
out?
do. Yeah, we do. And I can talk about them now, actually. So we've got one is called white coconut. So they're effectively flavored rum alternatives. So the first one is white coconut, which you can drink over ice mixed with pineapple juice or Coke. So think like a kind of a more premium Malibu, perhaps. You can also use it to make a pina colada cocktail.
Nice.
And then we've also got mango and passion fruit, which mixes beautifully with soda or lemonade with a little bit of lime, and that makes spritz. But equally, you can drink it just like a rum, essentially. So they're the two new flavors that we are launching in the range, and I'm really excited because we haven't actually brought any new innovation in terms of the bottles to market in about 4 years, which I couldn't believe when I look back. I was like, really? Like, that's a long time. So this is quite exciting for us.
They both sound absolutely delicious. I've got family visiting from the UK in October, so I'm going to get them to bring some out for me.
Yes.
I always feel like we're like the last to get things here in Asia. Things are just a bit slower to take off. Or for us, we get a lot of the Australian non-alc products up here, but less of the kind of the ones from the US and the UK. And I think it's just like a combination of the trend hasn't necessarily hit, but a lot of people here don't drink. We've got, you know, a lot of different kind of people who don't drink for religious reasons, a lot of people who don't drink for allergy reasons. We tend to get things a little bit later. So I'm always doing my shopping.
It's frustrating. I'm so impatient. So once I know, like, I want to do something, I'm like, let's go. That would annoy me. But yeah, that is the way that the world of you know, the no and low industry has worked, really. I mean, strangely, it kind of really took off in the UK, which is ironic because, you know, typically known as one of the booziest nations in the world. And then you just watch each market develop at you know, a slightly faster or slower speed at different points, and you know, each market's got its nuances as well. So that's been quite interesting, fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot from home that a lot of people are just saying actually it's becoming a lot more accepted, you know, and I'm hearing it actually a lot more from men that are saying when they go to the pub, they or their friends are choosing more of the kind of non-alc beers, and people are giving less of a shit. Like if one of the group isn't drinking, you know, it's becoming a lot more kind of accepted. That pressure to drink is kind of slowly subsiding. And I think it's in part because the products are so good now.
I think it's a few things. I think availability has improved.
Yeah.
You know, you walk into any supermarket now in the UK, and you will find a non-alcoholic section, and quite often it's called out, like it's got signage all around it. It's really pointing you towards that. More often than not, you can walk into a pub or bar and they will have non-alcoholic options on the menu. This wasn't the case 4 or 5 years ago, and it was just really, the industry was just starting out, and more money has been put into the industry from bigger brands as well that have got big budgets for big TV advertising campaign. There's a lot more awareness in sport around 0% beer. So I think all of that is helping to normalize not drinking. And so now when you go to a pub or bar with your friends and you say, hey, I'm not drinking, so I'm gonna order a non-alcoholic beer or alcohol-free cocktail. Yeah, so what?
I love that. And I think we're struggling a little bit with the convincing hospitality that there's a market for it. And it is shocking considering how many people don't drink here in Singapore. And, we just keep saying, well, look, you're leaving money on the table. If I'm not going to, I don't want a soda, I don't want like a fizzy drink. So if you don't have a sophisticated non-alc option, I'm just going to go with water. And I'm probably not going to stay as long. And I'm probably going to make my husband go home a little bit earlier, who might be having 1 or 2 glasses of wine, because it's just nothing for me. And the more people I speak to who are looking at cutting down their drinking feel exactly the same way.
It's frustrating. I feel, hospitality in the UK is really now coming around to the fact that there's a commercial opportunity here to keep people in for longer. People that don't drink, or maybe choosing not to drink when they go out, are doing their research and are going on websites and social media and checking drinks menus. So if you don't have an offering, fundamentally you are missing out on lost sales. And exactly like you said, often part of a group, there'll be people drinking alcohol and people not drinking, and if those not drinking don't feel like they have options, then they're just going to leave earlier, and so you miss out on another hour or 2 of people ordering drinks. We've been going for about 6 years now as a brand, and the early years were tough. Like, you really were, people kind of got it, but it just felt like you were just trying to push down a brick wall of just like, it's chicken and egg, because until and it was the same with the retailers, like until they actually make the change and go, right, we're going to take a risk here and we're going to dedicate some of this retail shelf space to alcohol-free products. And some of them are like, oh, well, we need to see the demand first. I'm like, well, you're not going to see the demand unless you make a change, because the availability has to be there. So it can get frustrating, but there's progress for sure.
Yeah, and I love that now when I go home. I'm like, okay, I think things are changing. And from what I'm hearing from people in New York, they're the same. They're saying, okay, well, things are, becoming much more inclusive. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of the redefining of fun, because one of the biggest misconceptions is that if you give up alcohol, like, it means that you're giving up the fun. And this is something that your brand in particular was so good at showing, that you can still have fun without the alcohol. So tell me a little bit about kind of how you wanted to bring that through with your brand and your events and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, from the very start, I think our tagline has always been the joy of not drinking, and it centers around our mission, which is to bring joy to not drinking. And I think what that means in practice is, like, I think I felt that as a brand we had a really big job to do, which was show people they could enjoy themselves without alcohol, because coming into it there was so much skepticism around that fact. Like, you'd meet people who were drinking and perhaps you weren't, or I wasn't, and they'd say, well, great, well, you're going to be a life and soul of the party, and just being quite sarcastic. And I think now, a number of years in, ultimately that's more reflection on that person and their ability to actually know themselves and maybe use alcohol as a bit of a crux to, for their night, so whatever. But I remember saying, and I did find COVID difficult, because what I began to realize was, in terms of our mission, we couldn't just tell people to go, we couldn't just tell people you can have fun without drinking. We had to show them. And this is where, once we came out of 2020 and kind of things started opening back up again, we just got out there as a brand, and we activated, and we went to festivals and events, activated in the trade. And for me, it was about, how do we create really fun, exciting experiences? To your point earlier, you want to go to a Caleño party. Like, how do we put on the best parties that people want to be at? And you'd walk in there, and if you were a complete stranger and you didn't know what you'd walked into, you would have no idea that no one was drinking alcohol, because there is music, there's like people laughing, there's great cocktails on offer, there's a fantastic atmosphere. So for me, it was like, how do we create that whole package? And yes, of course, a big part of it is actually, do I have a great tasting product and cocktail in front of me right now? But also there's other elements. It's like the people you're with, it's the atmosphere, it's music, it's, are people kind of getting up, dancing, enjoying themselves? So we, as a brand, you will tend to find us in places like Revolution de Cuba, like Revolution Bar Group, Barrier Bars, like kind of quite fun, vibrant places where you go to have fun. So we like to show up in those places because, we've got a job to do. We've got to show people that they don't need alcohol in that equation. So yeah, that's been really fundamentally important right from the beginning, and something we continue to strive for.
And I love this so much. And this is why I was so excited to talk to you, because I just feel like one of the only brands that are really doing that, or at least were initially. And it was just so refreshing. And I think coming into my kind of sobriety journey and looking at your brand and following on Instagram, I was like, okay, this is actually possible. Like, I'm going to, and I know this might sound really daft to feel this about a brand, but like, I actually felt like looking at this, oh wait, this is possible. Like, I am going to be able to find people who want to have a good time and want to enjoy this and can still go out and have a good time together. And, I'm still going to get that carnival vibe, that festival vibe. I'm still going to be able to feel like I can be included.
And you know what, Michelle, I think when I first came into this category, and I don't think I did it on purpose, because I was super clear about Caleño and what it was and the vision and what we wanted to do. But in the beginning, the category just felt a bit like serious and quite boring, and a bit like, let's focus on the really and not functional in terms of this is doing something to me, function in terms of this is non-alcoholic, this is healthy. And it just wasn't, as a consumer myself, it wasn't particularly inviting or fun or connected to me on a more lifestyle level. Thankfully I think things have changed, and there's a lot of interesting brands in the category right now. But to begin with, I definitely got that vibe that it was like, oh, this category is potentially feeling a little bit too serious, and if we're going to bring new consumers into this category, we've got to make it more exciting and enticing for them.
I think it's also, a lot of the brands were very much talking to people who didn't drink. And when you look at the data, and I don't know kind of the latest stats now, but it's such a small amount of percent, it's like 10%, maybe less, of people who are drinking non-alcs are actually abstain from alcohol totally. And I think, that's just for me really interesting as well, like, because initially the category was just talking to those people who didn't drink, but actually in opening it up to anyone who is just trialing, doesn't want to drink for that drink or that moment or that occasion, or anyone who wants to alternate their drinks through the night, people who just want to drink a little bit less. It's, I think, seeing that shift and that change. Do you see that in your customers as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think when the industry first began, I think what you're probably talking about are like the early adopters, and of course they were quite loud and proud about what they were doing. I'm sober, I'm flying the flag, this is a lifestyle, and I think those people were great for really opening up the conversation in the category. But then you got the people who were like, oh, I don't know if I want to go completely sober, or this feels quite intimidating. Can I survive without alcohol in my social life? So you then got those people who probably where I'd put myself in that camp when I first started was, I work for an alcohol company. I want to drink less alcohol because I feel like I'm surrounded by it the whole time. I still want to go out, have fun with my friends and socialize, and I still want a great tasting drink. And I think I tried to create a brand for those people whereby, during the week, if you want to go out and socialize and then maybe it gets to Friday and you have a few alcoholic cocktails, fine, but like you're reducing the amount of alcohol that you're drinking. And I think that's where it starts. And actually now we're finding people that have done that perhaps actually don't drink much at all anymore because they don't feel like they need to. Some of our customers are completely sober, but a lot of our customers are people who are going out to hospitality and are drinking alcohol-free cocktails in a Revs bar or a Barry bar or wherever it might be, or in a cafe for brunch that they're having a nice non-alcoholic cocktail. Doesn't mean they never drink alcohol, but there's a time and a place. So yeah, I would say the majority of Caleño's customers probably do still drink alcohol, but are definitely trying to cut back on the amount of alcohol that they do drink.
I think that kind of like inclusivity works both ways, just being able to have, oh, sorry, you froze then. I was just saying that kind of inclusivity works both ways, being inclusive, like making sure kind of bars and restaurants are inclusive for people who don't want to drink, but also making your product inclusive for people who maybe still drink but just want to kind of cut down. And where sorry, if you don't mind me asking, where are your, and feel free to not answer this if you don't want to, where are most of your sales coming from? Is it coming from retail or on premise?
Originally in the early years, it was we were much more heavily geared towards retail. And I think that was partly skewed by the fact that we launched a year before COVID, and effectively for 2 years we couldn't really sell too much to hospitality. But for me, the home of Caleño is always in hospitality because that's where you can really bring experience to life. And retail is fantastic, and we do a lot of business with retail. But for me, hospitality is where you can bring the experience to life. There aren't that many people at home making really great tasting cocktails. There are fantastic bartenders out there that can make cocktails at home, but you go out to a bar to buy a really great tasting cocktail. And so in the last year or so, we've actually seen our on-trade sales start to overtake retail, which is what I always wanted to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been really, really great to see. And the rate of sale that we're seeing within hospitality is fantastic.
That's really, really exciting to me as well, because that just shows that there's that shift as well in people wanting to drink non-alcs when they're out and about.
Yeah, and ordinarily if we'd launched, ironically, if I'd launched an alcoholic spirit, that's basically where most brands are built in hospitality as opposed to retail. We kind of did things sort of the other way around, a little bit backwards, just because people ask me sometimes why this is, and I think the reason I normally give is there's no judgment at home, and so if you buy a bottle of non-alcoholic beer or wine or spirit, whatever, you just want to drink it at home during the week to help you drink less. Or you buy it online, that's so easy to do. Whereas if you're going out to a bar or restaurant and you're with friends, you're kind of exposing yourself to whatever people might be saying. And so I sometimes wonder whether that is the reason why it kind of grew quicker in retail and online first. And now the shift is moving towards hospitality, certainly in the UK, but also US and other markets. So yeah. I sometimes use that as a reason that I think it's happened the other way around.
I think it just took a bit of time as well. And I know it certainly did with me to feel really confident about ordering non-alcs, when they were available and when I was in a big group of people. And I've said on this podcast before that it took me a whole year of not drinking before I actually started to say the words, "No, I don't drink," because I think there was this part of me that almost wanted to keep the door open a little bit. Like I didn't know if I was ready to completely commit to not drinking, even though I wasn't liking how it was making me feel. And I think I wanted to be really sure before I you know, maybe started kind of voicing that out loud?
Do you know, it's interesting when you said that. I remember because we, over the years, we've done loads of surveys with our consumers, or, people in this category. And I can't remember the exact question it was something around like, what's the excuse you give? Like, what's the reason you give when people ask you why you're not drinking? And people do feel like they have to make something up a lot of the time, or have typically felt like that. And I just thought, is that like, that's really sad that we live in a world where we feel like we have to lie about why we're not doing something. But that is changing.
Yeah.
And it is that peer pressure. It's that I want to fit in. I don't want to be asked awkward questions. Like, well, for whatever reason you'll choose, just why do we feel like we have to give a reason? It's just like, I'm not drinking. So what? Like, I'm going to order myself whatever, a nice drink or nothing at all. Like, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, I'm definitely seeing that attitude change.
I had like a bank of excuses. And even before, even just when I was like wanted to just drink less, I had this bank of excuses where it would be like, right, which one am I going to pull out? Which one do I think is going to give me the least resistance? But actually just turning around saying to people, no, I don't drink, was actually the best excuse you could ever give, because they just go, oh, right, okay. Very rarely does that kind of get probed, which is really interesting. But I think it should be okay anyway, right? If you just don't want to drink for that drink. But I think we've spoken about this, like we can see the shift. I think that's happening less and less now, that people are kind of feeling that peer pressure to, oh, go on, just have one. So that actually kind of segues quite nicely into like Sober October. And so I'm sure a lot of people are quite worried. People who want to do Sober October, they want to give it a go. They've just had maybe an amazing summer. And then Christmas is just around the corner. It's the perfect time to knock alcohol on the head for a month, have a little bit of a reset. But there can be quite a lot of anxiety around it, okay, what are people going to think? How am I going to go to these events? How am I going to go to the pub? What do I say to people? What are the different excuses? Do you need an excuse? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, so Sober October was initially it's a charitable initiative that was started by Macmillan. So, if you want to do that as a challenge and give to charity, then I think that's fantastic. Obviously, anyone can choose any month to take a time. I think it's more about, and you could say the same of January, like it's more about setting yourself that challenge of oh gosh, I'm going to misquote it, but there's something about like once you do something for a number of days, it becomes a habit. And I do think that's true, because a lot of people, when they do take a significant amount of time, you remove the temptation, and it does become more of a habit. And then you kind of look back and go, oh, actually that wasn't so hard. I can probably do that again, or I could do that for longer. And so I do think it's an interesting one to try if you are thinking about reducing your alcohol intake, or perhaps you want to try sobriety, and this is a way to do it. I think also I tend to see, like, October, it's a couple of months before Christmas, you get the closer you get to kind of the festivities and December time, that increasingly there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of social occasions. So actually trying this in October is a good way to kind of test the waters and give it a go and see how it goes for you.
I think the nice bit is almost saying, look, I'm doing Sober October, but actually, like you mentioned, Macmillan is saying, okay, no, I'm doing it for charity. Again, sometimes some people, if you say, oh, I'm doing Sober October, some people might go, oh God, you don't need to do that, have a drink and everything else. But I think as soon as you kind of add that, and I'm raising money for Macmillan, I think all of a sudden people maybe take it a little bit more seriously, and they're like, okay, I'll support you and won't encourage you to drink, and actually I'll even kind of donate. So I think almost calling it out for that is actually beneficial when trying to communicate what you're doing.
And it keeps you accountable, because if you're, if people are, friends and family are donating towards your challenge, then it makes it a lot harder to kind of fall off the wagon, so to speak, and back out, because you're kind of committed. People have invested in what you're doing. So yeah, I think supporting a charity along with this initiative is always a good way to go.
Have you got any advice on how people can best prepare for Sober October?
In terms of prepare, I think people struggle the most. Like I said, it's easier at home. If you're someone who's used to maybe drinking during the week or at the weekends, like fill your fridge with whatever you would normally drink, but alcohol-free versions of them, perhaps, so that you get, if you get to the end of the day, like, oh, it's been a really difficult one, where you'd normally go and pour yourself a glass of wine, maybe you've got another option, because generally you find it's just the ritual of having a drink that is what is kind of sometimes what you needed, and then you have that and you're like, actually, yeah, that's gone now. So that one, I think, circle any social occasions you've got, and think about how you want to respond to people who ask you about why you're not drinking. Like you said, tell them you're doing it for charity, or just say, I'm just taking a month off. Like, whatever you need to say, but maybe have a little bit of a plan.
Yeah.
Of that, so you don't, you're not tempted to wobble and succumb to peer pressure in the moment. So yeah, it always helps to be prepared. I say. And then also, if you're going out with friends, like, do a bit of research, find pubs or bars or restaurants that do serve really good alcohol-free options. Like, that can make a world of difference when you're out with friends and there is a great non-alcoholic menu, or there's some, great tasting non-alcoholic beers. And like you said, you'll probably stay out for longer and have a great time because you're part of the round. So I think those are a few things, and just think about all of the benefits that you're going to have across the month. Certainly, when I've had a few drinks, I'm more sluggish the next day. Like, you'll have a clearer head. Like, maybe you'll be able to get up earlier, go for a run. Just use it as an opportunity to think about all the other benefits that, a lot of people go sober when they're training for a marathon or they're working towards another challenge. So maybe you can tie it into something like that too. And I think, you're going to feel happier and healthier for it. So
I love that. It's all such great advice. And I think, yeah, the same thing is just prepare, right? I think one of my biggest things is, if you've got 4 weekends, plan ahead of time and be like, what, actually, I've not been to that museum. I really want to go and check that out. I want to go and have dinner at this place, or I want to go and see these friends. I maybe want to go and do a little weekend away. Like, look at those weekends, make a list of stuff that you love to do that maybe doesn't involve booze, and just find some friends who are up for going to do them without alcohol.
Preparation is key.
Yeah. One of my favorite things to do in London, I used to love going to Columbia Road Flower Market, but I think I only went like 3 times in the whole time that I lived in London, because I was always just too hungover to go and do it. And then on the odd occasion where I hadn't drank the night before and I got up and went, I was like, this is so nice. This is amazing. Why don't I do this every week? And, we'd get some flowers and have some brunch. And I'd be like, oh, this is so nice. And now I look back on it and I'm like, those are the weekends I actually remember. And I'm like, oh, they were really nice. And I didn't do it very often at all.
Yeah. I mean, the words hungover and, productive just don't go together. Like, if you're hungover, you are tired, you're sluggish, you are, the best laid plans. You're probably like, I'm not going to do that now. You eat crap food. So yeah, I just give it a go. See what happens. You might feel better for it.
And I'm all about definitely just planning your weekends ahead of time and like getting it all booked in. So there's no, because I think sometimes it's like, for me, especially with the drinking, it used to be like the spontaneity of it. It was like, after work, let's go and have drinks, or, on a Saturday, it's like, what, let's just go to the pub. But actually, if you kind of got things booked in and things that you've committed to that don't involve booze, you're more likely to kind of avoid maybe some of those spontaneous moments when, you might be tempted.
If you think about the money that maybe you would have spent on alcohol, because you do spend more money when you're drinking, because once you've had 2 or 3 alcoholic drinks, then you kind of lose that sense of self-control around money. So maybe look back at a month where perhaps you did have 2 or 3 boozy weekends. How much did you spend, and use that money to put towards on a trip, maybe do a weekend break somewhere. Like, you just got to think about it in a different way. Like, how else could I have used that money that I would otherwise lose to just a night out?
There's also like this bit of a mindset shift as well. So I've spoken about this again on the podcast before, it's like I failed at every single dry January I ever tried and I think the longest I made it was like 29 days or something. So I almost got there. But it was always because I was seeing it as like I was depriving myself of something, that it was like coming from a place of like taking something away, or it was coming from a place of like punishing myself because I'd had like a really heavy festive period. It was like my way of going, okay, you've overindulged, now I'm going to take this thing away. And I never ever succeeded in it because it was always about depriving myself of something rather than thinking of all of the things that you're going to gain.
Yeah, I think reframing a situation can make the world of difference. And I think that's why so many people do partake in dry January, because they do see it as an opportunity. It's like this kind of mental view we have of, new year, new me. It's like this mental reset that, everyone has, and they're like, right. And look, like, I'm all for that in healthy doses. Like, I had my idea to start something new in January, and I think sometimes you need to put yourself in that mindset for things to happen. So I think if you're doing that and you're taking a month off, you're kind of putting yourself in a healthy situation. You may choose to have a better diet that month, eat more greens, go for more runs, train for that marathon. Like, so many things could happen. So I think just reframing how you view the month more positively can definitely make a lot of difference into either the failure or success of your alcohol-free journey that month.
Yeah, completely. And I think it wasn't until I started to focus on the gains that it stuck with me longer term. And it's also been one of the things like in my journey has been quite hard, is like, I don't want to like look back and say I was miserable the whole time, because I wasn't. Like, I had some of like the best times of my life, drinking Beyonce at Glastonbury, just the closing ceremony of the Olympics in London was just like one of the best nights of my life. I had such a good night. My wedding day, my honeymoon, all of those things, like, alcohol was there. And so it's still taken a little bit of time not to look back and demonize it either. It's just, there's been so many gains from it that it now just doesn't make sense anymore. And I think having a period of time off, like 2 children, within 2 years of each other, I think after having that period of time off, I was like, when I tried to go back to it and maybe try to drink how I was drinking before, it was like, it just didn't sit right with me in the same way.
Getting up at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning with a bit of a hangover just doesn't have the same je ne sais quoi.
You just can't cope with it in the same way.
Right, this is not fun. This is not worth. This is not worth any amount of alcohol.
Yeah,
I think people are realizing that, but interestingly, you also have this younger generation who are just not getting into the habit of, you and I are probably, similar ages of, 18, go to uni, drink as much as possible, have the best time. Not really. I think when you're in your 20s, you don't really think about your health. You don't really think about, oh, how's that going to impact me later on? And as you start to kind of get a little bit older, not that we're old, but you do start to think about it a lot more. But interestingly, the younger generation who are graduating or coming out of school and reaching, what is classed as drinking age, 18 or 21 in the States, are kind of thinking, actually, I'm not gonna do it that way, and I don't need alcohol. And so they're just not picking up that habit, which I think is great.
Yeah, I think it's just there's just been that shift in culture with them, and I think and I interviewed the most amazing Gen Z girl, Holly, on the podcast, and I think they just identify their values a lot earlier than we ever did, and are very kind of true to that, and don't really care as much about what other people think as long as they're staying true to who they are, which like I'd love, and definitely was not like where I was at 18. But I think there's just so much more awareness now about the dangers of it, and social media is everywhere. Like when I went to uni, like Facebook had kind of only just come out, and it wasn't really a thing. You know, if you were on a night out, you would have to take your camera, and I used to take loads of pictures on my camera, and then I painstakingly spent hours like downloading them and uploading them to Facebook or MySpace.
There was no editing back then. It was like, it was almost funny to be photographed in a bush somewhere, just like passed out. Whereas, you know, the generation of today's social media would absolutely cringe at that and be like, no way am I putting that on social. So the mindset has shifted so much in the last decade or more.
Yeah, I had this theory that that Gen Zs saw everything millennials did with alcohol and was like, that's so cringe, I don't want to do it. But when I've asked a few young people about that, they're like, no, it's not that. It's just, it's not for us, which is really funny. So I think like we've talked a little bit about the fun, but I want to come back to it is, you know, people thinking that what are they going to do in Sober October? Like, what can they do to still have fun? Let's brainstorm some ideas and really fun things that maybe we've done that didn't involve booze, maybe things that your brand have done.
I mean, I'm a big fan of just experiences, and just soaking up new cultures, and so like weekend breaks are quite fun. Just like getting out of your usual environment can sometimes remove any temptation. And just like you say, just plan a load of things to do, you know, visit museums, go to different places, whether it's, you know, cities in the UK or outside of the UK. I've got a road trip to Ireland in a couple of weeks with my dad. So that'll be really nice, a bit of sightseeing. So make a plan that you can be excited about, I think.
I think trying new things as well. Like here in Singapore, we've got things like axe throwing, which is really fun. We've got something called the Fragment Room, and I don't know if it's a thing in the UK, but basically you can go in, you put on like protective wear, and then you've got like a whole wall of weapons, and it's like kind of zombie apocalypse style kind of weapons, and then you buy like bags and boxes of like trash and junk, and it's things like old TVs, monitors, and you basically smash them up. So you take like these sledgehammers and these axes, and you whacking them, and you're throwing TVs on the floor. You've got a big box of like plates, and like it's saying it out loud sounds really wasteful. I'm hoping they recycle a lot of it.
Well, it's stuff that I guess that would have been taken to a tip anyway, and the same thing happened, but they're just adding a bit of like experience to it. I mean, along the similar veins, maybe take up a new hobby or sport like rock climbing. I think it's getting bigger. Paddle, I keep hearing about. Like maybe, you know, think about something you've always wanted to try but maybe haven't yet, and just take up a new hobby and see where it gets you. You might find you love it and it sticks.
Yeah, I love that. I'm trying to get my husband to I want to learn how to play golf, but I just kind of want to go to the driving range with him like once a week and have these like date nights that don't involve overpriced food or just eating loads of food, or, you know, don't involve alcohol. Like taking up a hobby with somebody that you love is nice.
Yeah, my sister does that. She her and her husband golf. She recently learned golf, and they do that now. They go to the driving range. You've got the golf club. It's like, great, like something you can do together. It's fun. I think that's a great way.
Yeah, and I think there's also like meeting new people as well. So like, you know, at one point, I feel like I've done it all, you know, in the last few years and not drinking alcohol. But we tried, I went to pottery and just did like pottery classes, and that was just so nice and like really serene. Trying new kind of like gym classes and making new friends like in the gym, you know, just different Pilates classes or whatever. Training for High Rocks has been really fun, made kind of loads of friends and like, you know, just felt part of a new community. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's really uncomfortable putting yourself out there, but
Yeah.
actually it can really pay off as well.
Yeah, and like you said, you mentioned a partner, but if you've got a friend who perhaps is on a similar path and wants to, thinks the same way as you, then it can make a real difference doing these things with someone else, and for that kind of moral support along the way.
Yeah.
And you can always message each other, being like, "Oh, I went out last night. Everyone was kind of trying to force me to drink, but I held my ground," and so that can be really nice as well.
Yeah.
Doing those things with someone else.
Yeah, I totally use my children as well. Like, I'm not saying this is a good reason to have children, but I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, we've got this thing called Splat Paint House here. And you go get complete overalls and you get your canvas and paints, and you can just throw the paints, and they've got catapults and things that you can
God,
like
that
do.
sounds so much fun. We don't.
It's so fun. But the whole walls and the ceilings are covered in paint. So it just doesn't matter. It literally goes everywhere. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay, like, I'm taking the children. Even though it's something that I want to do.
Better they do it there than at the house, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly right. And they love it. It's just like something that they love to do. So I'm always like using them as an excuse to go and do something that I really want to do. Get in touch with my like
It's a
childhood.
win-win. It's a win-win, right?
Yeah. I think there's definitely something in that, is like, trying to remember all of the things that you used to find that were really fun back when you were a kid, like rock climbing, exploring, like making dens, and painting and art and being like really creative.
Yeah.
I've loved that over the last few years.
Yeah, you're so right. Like, I'm really looking forward to my little boy is about 16 months old now, so he's kind of just getting to that age now where he's starting to get interested. But I can't wait for him to be like at that point where he wants to build a den,
Yeah.
do lots of painting, like so much fun.
Oh my God, we got the most amazing things for forts, and it's like a fort builder. I think you can get it on Amazon, and it's like you put these kind of poles in these kind of round balls and build it up. And every weekend now we've kind of got a big fort in the living room with
I'll be like,
sheets.
right, move out the way.
Yeah,
This is for mummy.
that's it. And then when the kids are like, "Can we get the craft box out?" I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, it's the craft box of dreams. It's like the craft box that I wish I had when I was a kid.
Oh, I know. Oh, excellent. Oh,
You've got all that to come. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. It's really fun. And the amount of Play-Doh that we go through is absolutely disgusting. But it's nice. And again, I think like leaning into those things. And I think even if you don't have kids, I recently sent my sister a big kind of paint by numbers thing. So just for her to do, and like get in touch with her creative
so
self.
therapeutic. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, Caleño do these like amazing parties and amazing nights out. What advice have you got for people who maybe still want to socialize during Sober October, who still want to go out, go to their favorite kind of bars and restaurants, maybe go out and dance, but don't want to drink? How can they find, I know we've talked a little bit about kind of researching, but what should they be looking for in a night out?
From my experience, like if I was going out and not drinking and I wanted to plan ahead, I would go somewhere where I know there's going to be a bit of an atmosphere. I love to dance, I love music, so I would probably plan something around that. Definitely do your research and find a couple of places that do have a really great alcohol-free offering, and like we talked about earlier, that is massively improving, so it shouldn't be, depending on where you are in the world, shouldn't be too difficult to find, hopefully. And then maybe kind of give yourself, I mean, I know people who don't drink that are very happy being out till like 2-3 a.m. in the morning, but if you're just like, I'm a bit worried about getting to that stage of the night and not being able to keep up with everyone else, it's fine. Just give yourself like a curfew and be like, right, by midnight I'm gonna say my goodbyes and head home. Like, that's absolutely fine. Don't put loads of pressure on yourself. But I think just find a really good place to eat. It's got great food, some non-alcoholic options, and then maybe somewhere where it's a bit more lively. It's got some music, got some dancing. I mean, whenever we've held our own parties through Caleño, like we've had we've had like limbo sticks, we've had like different games going on, and people absolutely love it and have just got really involved. I think you'll be surprised. Like once you're in that kind of atmosphere, you will let loose a little bit, and you just people place in my opinion, an unbelievable reliance on alcohol, which actually, when you remove it a lot of the time, a lot of it is in your head. That idea that, oh, no, I couldn't possibly go out and enjoy myself on this night because without alcohol. But just, set yourself a challenge, give it a go. I think you'll be surprised.
Yeah, for sure. I think so much of it could be a placebo as well. So like if you've got like a really good non-alc in your hand, something that smells like alcohol, looks like alcohol, tastes like alcohol, whether it's like a bottle of beer, a glass of wine, a really amazing cocktail, like if the atmosphere's good, you're around great people, the music's good, and you're comfortable, and that the comfortable thing is really important to me. And that's because I found that when I tried to go out in like nice dresses and heels, I felt uncomfortable all night. So actually going out in clothes where like I felt really uncomfortable, going out in trainers, I was like absolutely golden, like had such a good night. But all of it combined together, the music and the non-alc can almost act like a placebo and make you feel just a little bit lifted, right? It's all the good energy.
In the early days, I met a girl when I was doing research behind it. This would have been like 7 years ago, maybe more. She was working behind a bar, and I was talking to her about what I was doing, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I went out and got drunk once on Beck's Blue until I realised it was alcohol free." So it was just funny to hear that she was drinking this non-alcoholic beer, thinking it was alcohol free, and was just kind of acting a little bit tipsy without really knowing. Because, like you said, it is a lot of the time it's in your own head.
Exactly, and I love that. I love that you can still go out and have a great time without having the negative effects of alcohol afterwards. And I want so many more. And part of my mission here is like I just want so many people to understand that maybe this conditioning that we've got from what we've been told, like what our culture has told us, and what we've been told for so many years, is that you need alcohol to have a good time and you need alcohol to have connection. It's all actually not true. And it took me so long to like really unbelieve that, like really change my wiring, because I'm from a family that's always loved to drink and been a real kind of party house. And my mom and dad are just so fun. They're amazing. But it's like from a really, really young age, I was basically told that I needed alcohol to have a good time, and I needed alcohol to be a fun person, but also to have fun. And that has taken 36, 38 years to really actually realize that that's not true.
I love that. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, what you're doing here is great in terms of having these conversations and showing people there is another way to enjoy life.
And it's saying your brand's doing just that as well. And I think that's why I was just so drawn to it in the beginning of my journey, and why I was so surprised or to find it in the space, and why I'm just kind of like so excited for your new products and to see more and to see more of what's to come.
Thank you.
So thank you, Ellie, so much for talking to me today. Is there anything else you'd like to chat about or cover?
No, I mean, I think we've covered quite a bit of ground really in terms of the cultural piece and drinks. No, I think that's
it's perfect. It's kind of wrapped up really nicely. But yeah, no, thank you. Honestly, thank you so much.
It's always good. It's always good to just have. I mean, these podcasts are always like quite informal, but yeah, it's always good to just chat to someone through to about it, and everyone's got like a slightly different perspective on it, so it's always super interesting.
I know, and I just and thank you for like creating Caleño, I know, which I've probably been absolutely butchering this whole podcast.
Oh, yeah, I knew when I named it that I was creating a slight challenge for everyone.
So let me get this right at the end of the podcast, but let's get this right. Caleño,
yeah. It's literally the tilde over the N is a yo. Caleño.
Caleño.
Yeah.
Okay, I promise moving forward I'm going to get that right. But yeah, thank you for sharing your journey as well, and like your passion in creating joyful experiences and a
Yeah.
joyful brand.
No, I know. Well, it's rewarding to see. I mean, not just my brand, but like how far the category has come
Yeah.
in what is a relatively short space of time when you think about how long alcohol has been around. So yeah, it excites me that actually there's so much more to be done. But yeah, I think I still feel like we're really just right at the beginning of a turning point in our culture.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been exciting to be part of that.
Oh, for sure. And I'm still quite new into even just talking about this space, but
Yeah.
I feel the same way. The tide is changing, and it's really exciting. To all of our listeners, just remember that Sober October is not about deprivation. It's just about discovery, and you can still have loads of fun, even without the booze. And it's just really about finding new ways to connect, to celebrate, and maybe you might even unlock a little bit more of your potential. So let's raise a glass of Caleño to a month filled with joy, growth, and vibrant living. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to The Upward Spiral and leave a review and share it with your friends. And don't forget to check out all of Caleño's delicious non-alcoholic spirits. I'm going to link to everything below. Cheers to Sober October.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.